would like to use for recognizing an international international certified sustainable palm oil. It's about 8 to 10 certification practices now, but RSPO is you know, the most known among the consumers, and I'm glad that and I have report to His Excellency Ambassador that I met with what's his name? Lord Molly, and he said that the British government would like to recognize RSPO. So I think that's a good news for us. At least we now can concentrate on one system rather than try to please many others. And the fourth problem is, of course, this changing needs some investment, and the question of who will finance it. Who will finance it? I do believe the government will out of the questions, because as same in everywhere else in the world, Indonesian government face difficulties in our budget, as you and here in UK. So we need to be financed by the business, and that can also secure sustainability itself. It's because sustainability not only in terms of the environment, but also sustainability of the business. So make it on their system, make it on their business model, on changing from unsustainable to sustainability, I think is a way to go. So if we could together work as a partner addressing these problems, then probably in the very near future we could have the product that we want, which is a sustainable product. But having said that, if UK or EU would like to implement regulations that it only would like to buy a sustainable, international certified sustainable palm oil, then Indonesia is ready. Because as I said, Indonesia is the biggest producers and exporters of that kind of product. If you implement that tomorrow, we will ready. What we would like to ask, though, to be non-discriminatory. Why? We see this as a discriminatory issue. It's discriminatory if you only ask for a sustainable palm oil. You should ask a sustainable vegetable oil, because soybean have their own issues on sustainability, rapeseed have their own issue on sustainability, olive oil have their own issues on sustainability. So I think this is not only, if we consistent with the sustainability approach and sustainability principles, then it should be non-discriminatory. That is also happening for the labeling issue. We are very much seeing, if you only put in your label of your product no palm oil, then we will consider that as a discriminatory. If you would like to do, please put all ingredients that are not in that food. No palm oil, no sugar, no all food ingredients, no. Just put it there. That is non-discriminatory. If you just put non-palm oil, then again, we could see that as against the principles that we all honor. So, or better yet, just say on the positive sense, which is saying what is the ingredient of the product. I think that's the principles that we already honor for so long. So with that, as an introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is very much would like to see stronger and much higher cooperations with the governments of UK, as well as with the civil societies and businesses on addressing these issues. Just again, put on context, if we ban the palm oil, then you need to have 9 times more land to cultivate to produce the same amount of vegetable oil that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Now, there you have it. I think the issue here is we all understand that the palm oil issue has an impact on economically, socially, financially, of course. But like has already been alluded to, the point is how do we progress together in partnership, not to look back to the past, because in the past we cannot change the past, but now we can change the future. I think this is the time that we should look towards this. How can we work in partnership and move on together? I'm sure there are some questions that you would like to ask. I will turn the floor. Yes.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm from the British Retail Consortium. It's really encouraging to hear what you have to say about what you're doing in sustainability. I was wondering, from your perspective, do you think, is it more helpful for the UK government to enforce a regulation or to have a voluntary approach through public procurement, or by saying that we support RSPO certified palm oil? What approach do you think is better? Because you mentioned the timber regulation. I'm just trying to understand if you think it's better to have regulation for this or to have voluntary approaches.
I think timber regulations is much stronger issues than the palm oil. The reason why probably I might be wrong, but in timber the issue is illegality. It's illegal to cut the forest. That's plain and simple, right? And even Indonesia have a very strong regulation against that. So, and of course in Europe and especially in the UK. So this is something that very much against a crime, you know. So I think in that situations, using law and regulations to approach this issue is much more appropriate to make sure that the product is legal. On palm oil, I think it's slightly different issues. It's not illegal, but it's bad. It's unsustainable. It's not good, you know, and we don't want it, right? So I think it's better to have more voluntarily based compared to, you know, very firm kind of regulation on it. But that's what we approach, and I talked just a few months ago in Brussels in Parliament, and I said Indonesia will support you and 100% if you put a regulation saying EU only allow a sustainable vegetable oils to be traded in EU. By all means. But we will, that's my point, we will see this as discriminatory if you put a regulation saying EU will only trade sustainable palm oil. Right? I need, of course, you know the way this will end. If you put that vegetable oil, then you have to make sure your own farmers produce a sustainable vegetable oil. And I'm not an expert, but I can bet that's not going to be easy. So that's the way we would like to do. And just to put again on your to that context, Indonesia mandatory. We will give a mandate to our companies to produce a sustainable palm oil under our law and regulation. We call it Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil. It's actually a mandatory regulations for all the companies under our law. So yes, of course, this is our law. We cannot, ask you to to take this as a mandatory for you. That's why RSPO is voluntary. It's a consumer base because the buyer would like to have that, by all means. But for the Indonesian companies, they have to obey this regulation. So that's why my proposal tomorrow to the RSPO is, if the Indonesian company already have the ISPO certifications, let's work just only a few points that actually different between ISPO and RSPO. It's less than about only 10%. Only about 10% of RSPO indicators who are different with ISPO. 90% of RSPO indicators is actually quite the same with ISPO, with Indonesian's mandatory system. So why do we come with the differences? Let's come with the common of this system.
Any other?
Minister, can you talk a bit more about that exact point, the comparison between ISPO and RSPO? Are you confident that you will conclude discussions on that and reach agreement, some kind of mutual recognition between the schemes? Obviously, RSPO is recognized by the EU as an approved scheme for biofuels, for example. How do you see ISPO comparing, and do you think this 10% is, although it's not a big number, there are very difficult issues within that 10%? Or not? By the way, I'm from ADM, Archer Daniels Midland.
Okay.
Where I'm from.
In RSPO, under the RSPO, there are about 140 indicators. 140 indicators. In the ISPO, there is about 126 indicators. 126 indicators. The RSPO indicator, who already under the ISPO indicator, is about 124. So only about 16 indicators outside the ISPO indicators. So this is a start. This is something that I think is a very, very good start. Only 16 out of 140, so roughly about 10%, that under RSPO who are not in ISPO yet. Now, of course, we don't want to push RSPO to completely recognize ISPO, but let me put that on the context. First, as I said, RSPO is only 10 years old. And they are through at least 2 or 3 times changing of their indicators. So it's a very young system that needs to be continuously improved. ISPO is only about 3 years. So we are also face our challenge. So, but this is a start. Yes, there are some issues on the quality aspect, not the quantity. The quantity is there, only about 10%, but the quality, yes, we need to go through one. We need to go and work together on the details of that. That's one. The second is the assessor who make the assessment, the certificator who give the certifications. Indonesia is such a vast country and huge plantations all over Sumatra and Kalimantan. As you know, we need a lot of skillful personnel to go in that area and make the assessment. And to on the other side, RSPO is also have to do that. If we conflicting one to another, then we need to have hundreds of personnel, maybe thousands of personnel in ISPO, 1,000 personnel in RSPO. It's inefficient. Why could we just go jointly build this system of assessing the sustainability? Because a very complex issue about how to change from unsustainable to become sustainable. And with that all in mind, Indonesia are willing to put on the perspective, but within the near future, we will only export the international certified sustainable palm oil. And internationally, we can work together. First, just a few weeks from now, Indonesia is co-hosting with UNEA, United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi, make an event about sustainable palm oil. So this is total breakthrough. In the past, when we discuss about sustainable palm oil, most likely to be on the economic side. But this is on the environmental people. And they see the urgency of producing sustainable palm oil, rather than just blaming on sustainable palm oil, on palm oil. Right? So this is a major breakthrough. The second, Indonesia initiated under APEC to have what we call it as development list product. Why development? Why not environmental good list that's been initiated mainly by US? Development list, environment only talk about the environment. That's why the product within the environment EG list, if you look, most likely will be industrials. You know, solar panel, what do you call it, electricity efficient bulb, and so forth, something like that. But with this another initiative, we call it development list, is not only environment, but also rural development and poverty reduction. And that is something also need to be put on the perspective. That within that, Indonesia already put palm oil. And about 11 countries, at least on this stage, this is still a study level, study stage of the agreement. They agree, 11 countries already support it. So this is again a major progress that we made. So I think my optimism comes from Indonesia is the biggest producers and exporters. RSPO is the most recognized system. If we jointly and partnership and join forces, I think we could make a difference and bigger impact.
So following on from that question, sorry, my name is Glenn Reynolds from the Royal Society's Southeast Asia Rainforest Research Programme. In terms of the differences between ISPO and RSPO, I also, by the way, sit on the RSPO's biodiversity working group and compensation task force. One of the major problems that we have to deal with on those two groups are sort of differences in approach between ISPO and RSPO in terms of how they handle the protection of conservation values, biodiversity within plantations and within areas that are to be developed as plantations. So as I understand it, under Indonesian law, there really isn't provision to protect pockets of forest, for example, within plantation landscapes, which is a requirement under RSPO. So under RSPO, before an estate is developed, indeed on existing plantations, high conservation values have to be identified and then protected within the plantation. But that seems to be problematic under Indonesian law, where there isn't provision to protect these areas within plantation landscapes. But I understand that's being addressed through legislation. I just wondered whether you had any updates on that situation, Minister.
Yes, first on highly conservation's values side, is I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is not in the early RSPO certifications. It's not, you know, this is come as a development. It's only about 7 or 6 years ago they come and put this, right? That's why I say this is a growing situation, it's a growing continuous improvement. And that issue is also, even on the UN scale, is still under debate, right? So we are more than willing to learn, to have an open mind, and as you said, we already roll out legislative and regulation process in assuring that highly conservation values side can be protected. Some of the companies, I know some of the Indonesian palm oil companies, voluntarily already, made that kind of protections. And that's why we are producing 4.5 million, about 4.5 million tons of CPO under their SPO with that requirement. So I think it's only ISPO, the present ISPO, it's not, like there is a saying in Indonesia, the only written that cannot be changed is Al-Quran and Bible. So even ISPO can be changed, can be improved, can be, and growing up with the issues. So I think, yes, of course, if there is new regulation, new legislations on that, then ISPO will adopt it automatically, because ISPO is a systematic way of combining and compounding all the Indonesian regulations. But as any other legislation process all over the world, in many countries, take time. And especially for Indonesia now, we are in general elections years, so I think we are going there.
That's interesting to hear.
Yes.
Thank you, Vice Minister. Peter Wickenden from Shell, which, as you know, is probably the oldest and the biggest oil investor in Indonesia. In fact, the very history of Shell is actually bound up with the history of your very country. Oil is born there. It's the Royal Dutch side. My question is more of a domestic issue rather than export of palm oil, and it relates to the introduction late 2013 of a minimum requirement for the amount of biofuel in domestic motor fuels and other forms of fuels. So for example, for cars, it's now been raised to 10%, which must come from domestic palm oil. That appears to be very difficult to comply with. I think Indonesia's own car manufacturers are saying that certain types of more sophisticated passenger car engines are unable to run properly on it, and it's causing cars to get bunged up and to causing a lot of warranty claims and so on. There's also a difficulty with the sheer amount of biofuel which is available domestically. Much as we would like to comply with the requirements, and this applies to Pertemuan as well, we simply can't obtain enough biodiesel to mix into our fuel, and so it is difficult to comply. There are also issues about the quality of it and the amount that we can obtain that is certified. So I wonder what comment you might have on that, given that I understand there are plans to raise the level even higher in the future, possibly 20%.
Yeah.
Even at 10% level, it's extremely difficult to comply with.
Yeah, maybe the reason why it's difficult is because this is something new. And for Indonesian government, the reason for that particular regulation is actually not only about palm oil. It's more on many aspects. First is trade aspect. This is just come this morning with Indonesia report deficit in trade as export slide. Yeah, but the reason why actually is not only about the export slide, but because our import for crude oil is quite high. We import for oils is increasing. So that is the policy is actually related with that. We try to reduce our import dependency on oil, try to substitute it with our domestic product, which is palm oil. We will make a saving from our imports about 3 to 3.5 billion US dollars with that policy. And so that's one issue. The second, probably, of course, we are believing that using palm oil is reducing the pollution. during the glass houses effect. And not mentioning, I'm not sure that if I should say it to you, with that policy, the price of palm oil is getting up. And that's good for Indonesia. Yeah, the producer and the exporter. So if our products going up in the international market, they're good for us, right? So that's another benefit that we'd like to see. Maybe we are not thinking about learning from the difficulties that you face. I could share with you that we are thinking the regulation will be accompanied by another regulation, which is on the automotive industry, like in Thailand or in Brazil, which is they put a mandatory that every vehicle in their country should have two systems. Toyota and all the automotive manufacturers should prepare themselves, prepare their products to dual system of fueling. The kind of hybrid, yeah, kind of hybrid. They can choose probably on gas or on biofuel. So this is new development. This is still again very dynamic. The much recent goals is on the trade deficit actually for the oils. So that's why we implement that, and it's help. It's not a lot, but still gives us some kind of room for breathing for our trade deficit. So that's the point. And we do hope that oil companies like Shell and others, because we only deal with about 5 or 6 oil companies in Indonesia, these big oil companies, and with $1 billion in your pockets, you can invest to be becoming, distributing more cleaner and good to the economy products.
Well, we do. I mean, Shell, as you know, is already the world's biggest producer of palm oil.
Exactly. So we also hope you could help us in developing that system.
Minister, my name is Nick Hewitt. I'm a Professor of Chemistry at Lancaster University. I'm interested in air quality, particularly in ozone at the ground level. And Indonesia at the moment is in the very lucky position of not suffering from ozone pollution as we do in this country and the rest of Europe, North America and China and so on, where we have very severe ozone problems. Indonesia doesn't suffer from that at the moment. But there is a possibility that in the future that situation might change. That could be avoided by Indonesia being very careful about emissions from vehicles. So just following up on your comments about vehicles, I'd be very interested to know what plans your government has for further regulation on emissions from vehicles. Now I know that doesn't sound as though it's directly related to oil palm, but because of the complex chemistry of the atmosphere, emissions from vehicles combine with emissions from the oil palm trees in chemical reactions in the atmosphere to form ozone. So it's very important to be aware of the need to regulate the oxides of nitrogen, which particularly come from motor vehicles.
Yeah, again, this is not an easy subject for Indonesia. We are still growing. We are still, as you know, our income per capita is only about 5,000, 6,000. So we are growing. Our people would like to enjoy, some are probably, in Indonesian standard is still a luxury, which is owning a car. And unfortunately, and I'm not very proud of it, our infrastructure has not been developed yet, so we don't have any mass transportation system that's good as London or any other big cities in the world. So what we do is try to use an indirect approach. We already implement since 2005, 2005-2006, new perspective on the compositions of our fuel, of our energy basically. How many percents come from fossil fuel, come from biofuel, from other sustainable resources. We already make that, and we try to see that as a perspective of that kind of question. The second is, of course, we try to, now it's building a little late compared to other big cities. Jakarta is now trying to build the mass rapid transportation systems. Hopefully it could also reduce the gas emission from transportation. We now introduce what, as you know, probably what they call it, the green building systems, and of course they are also helping us. So actually we are trying very hard to do that, but we need to make a balance between the right to pursue income and wealth with our resources, and try, of course, to be part of the global movements on environment issues and sustainability. But to compare directly country to country is actually really rather unfair. Probably it's not an apple-to-apple situation. We do hope that you could come with your experience, with your learning process, which are successful, which are failing, and which do and don't, and to give us advice on that. Because I know that reading from the documents, that there is maybe out of 100 effort that Europeans try to deal with that issues, maybe more than half is failing. Right? So we would like to learning from that, not to repeating the same mistake.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Neil Scotland, and I work in the British Government's Department for International Development. And thank you for a very interesting talk. I was very interested indeed that you used the example of timber and the voluntary partnership agreement. As you know, the UK has worked very closely with your government for many years to develop and implement that. And I think it's a very good example that shows how changing market standards and concerns about sustainability can be turned into an opportunity rather than a threat, and you secure markets and build market share through that with a well-considered response. And with that in mind, I just wanted to say that we would certainly be very interested in exploring similar opportunities to cooperate with you on the issue of palm oil and how to work about a similar transformation in that sector. And I think one issue which we haven't touched on so much today, we touched a bit on the environmental impact of palm oil. I think that the social impact is also quite an important aspect to consider, and there's a lot of land conflict associated with palm oil.
Yeah.
And I think the question I have is, with this in mind, with the question of the issues of social conflict, what do you think could be done by both the Indonesian government and international partners like the UK to mitigate land conflict associated with palm oil and the related deforestation? Okay,
thank you. First, let us put on context about social issues and land conflict. This is, of course, very argumentative. You can come with your own data, but I think less than 5% of palm oil developments by the farmers or by the companies who have that conflicts. Yes, there is still, and there are in Kalimantan and Sumatra there are some of the conflicts, but in terms of acreage, in terms of cases, it's actually very small. So put that on context. We need to handle this as a small, spatial cases, not as a major issues, because our regulations actually already try to put a platform that could prevent such conflicts in terms of many things. And just to put again for your attention, since the conflict is not only between the big companies and local peoples, but some of them is conflict between palm oil and mining, for example, or other purposes. So, as many cases in Kalimantan. So, we need to go case by case, because one case is very specific, the other case is different, and we are more than happy to work with any other partners to try to come with a solution for this, case by case. Our law and regulation systems is not perfect. We recognize that, and we need to improve it from time to time. As you know, Indonesia had a major change in our politicals and regulation systems back in 2000s, in what they call it reformation era, when the local governments play now a much more dominant role in such regulation. So this is not put under challenge, and after 10 years, more than 10 years, we haven't come to a perfect, complete solution to all the problems. But hey, United States take 200 years. I don't know how much it takes in UK.
At least 500.
At least 500.
Yes.
Thank you, Vice Minister. My name is Ying Satan and I'm from Global Council. My organisation has been watching the BPA pertaining to Indonesia and the EU very closely. And I would like to ask two questions, if that's okay. Following on from the last question, one of the other major social and environmental challenges associated with both the palm oil industry and the forestry sector in general is the issue of forest fires.
Okay.
And as we enter the beginning of another forest fire season in Indonesia, I was wondering what your view was on the best way for the government and companies as well to work together to tackle this issue. And secondly, a more general question, if I may. President Yudhoyono has won international acclaim for the priority that he's placed on the sustainability and environmental agenda during his time in office. And as we approach the Indonesian elections next month, I was wondering what your assessment was of the approaches to the environmental agenda of both the two main presidential candidates.
Okay. In just the latest case of forest fire in Indonesia, I think I just read the report. It's about there is about 110 or something person who get caught, on that law enforcement. When the law enforcement come and try to sort it out, about 110 been caught. Now, this is very interesting statistic. Of course, this is only in one case, 1 year. Out of that 100, let me just say 100 to make it easy for the argument. About 10% is related with company. It's not big companies, small companies, medium companies, but it's companies. They just, put their face around when somebody just to burn in their field. Another 10% is individuals who are just neglected, just smoking cigarettes and that cases. But about 80% is actually farmers who try to open a land to cultivate for the agriculture. Now, I think if we could not come with an alternative of land clearing that maybe not as efficient, as easy as burning the land, then we will always have this. This is a question of technology. This is a question of how we solve that problem. How to clear up the land without burning. Or we can use an economic incentive. For example, we already tried to work with our pulp and papers companies to collect all the remains of that, opening land, any twig, any leaf, any whatever, because it's all can be transformed to become a pulp and eventually become a paper or any other product. But it still need to be more systematically and more support and best practice from international to come with an answer about that needs. So I think in the futures we do hope that kind of technology can be developed together, and we are very open to have any suggestions. Second, of course, to monitor and to be able to give an early warning system of this forest fire. And the third, of course, the system of how to deploy and go directly to the source of that fire and tackle while it's still small. Now, it's easy to put it on papers and make a presentations, but to go and do it in Sumatra and Kalimantan is going to be a health task. So I think that's the biggest challenge. If not, then we will always repeating the situations and we are playing a blame game. On your seconds, I'm to be very honest, I'm not personally I'm acquainted with Pak Jokowi and Pak Prabowo, but I know the two vice president candidates very closely. I work with Pak Yusuf Kala, I work with Pak Hatta. So at least on the vice president side, both are committed very much with what SBY, as you know, Yusuf Kala is the vice president of the SBY, Pak Hatta is coordinating ministers, and I think 3-time ministers under the SBY. So you can be assured that these two vice presidents will have the same determination and same visions on sustainability and all other environmental issues.
Well, I guess it's in our own interest to maintain this policy.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, Vice Minister, how do you get the people to understand that we need to have new technologies? This, again, is where education comes into the picture. I think this is a big task for us as we move forward. We need to tackle all these kinds of issues. But I think we'll do it. Yes. Communication is there. Commitment is there. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Please.
Tim Stevenson from KK, and I also represent KK on the board of the RSBO. I heard you speak in Medan at the RSBO conference in November, and I heard the significant differences, or a slight shift, I think, in approach now even compared with then, and particularly comparing the ISBO with RSBO and looking at the differences and trying to bring those together. I think I'm sure will be welcomed by the RSBO as well. And from a European perspective, I think it's a very good move on behalf of the Indonesian industry, because in Europe, for various reasons, RSBO is the standard which is required by most end users. And ISBO is perceived, at least, to be different from maybe a little bit, not quite the same as RSBO. So the closer those two can come together, then I think that would be a big benefit for the Indonesian farm industry in terms of getting market share in Europe, as well as moving forward in terms of environmental and social issues, which is great. But my question actually refers to your comments regarding the potential for a ban on uncertified exports of Indonesian palm oil relating to international certification, which I guess would be RSBO or something like that, and in the near future. Can you perhaps give us a little bit more about what you mean by the near future, how long you think it would take, and what an implementation plan might be for that, which I guess would include talking with you there as well?
Yes, of course, it very much depends on how fast you can move on working together, solving the problem. If it only depends on the government in Indonesia itself, with all the complexities, I think it's going to take a little longer. But if we could work together, and not only with the, I mean, when I speak tomorrow in RSPO, it's not only the RSPO that I addressing. I addressing the buyers, the consumers. And what I would like to propose is working together, not only with the RSPO and CS organizations, but with all of the buyers. In my perspective, we need each other. We need, the buyers need us because we are probably the most efficient vegetable oil there is. We need you as our markets. Then let's work together on that. The problem is that, the way to do is roughly there already. We recognize that. We need education, we need capacity building in many aspects. We need to go there and do it. And black campaign or negative campaign is not do anyone good, right? Banning the product is not do anyone good, because still, look, Indonesian export to Europe is only about 3.5 million. Our production is about 30 million. Easily, we can just, as you mentioned, we now take from markets about 4 million tons of CBO and burn it for domestic fuel consumption. So I think if we play this, as a blame game or war game, then nobody will win. It's just a lose-lose situation. So as long and as the soon we come together as with partnership and joint plan to tackle this problem, and the sooner. And one of the biggest buyers for palm oil products in Europe is companies like Unilever, Nestle, Carrefour, and all of that. And these companies is also big in Indonesia. So it's not only, this is not just a separate by ocean. Is even we are connected by oceans. So that is I think the way we see. On the optimistic side, less than 5 years. That is another optimistic side. It's very much depend on many things, including who will be the president.
Simon from IKEA, the Swedish.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for your excellent talk. I have to say, I really appreciate your directness and openness. I think British politicians could probably learn. My question is about consumers, really. There's an assumption that it's only European consumers that care about sustainability. I think actually that's a bit of a myth. And our experience is actually that in China, for example, there are huge consumer concerns, particularly around pollution and environmental issues. So my question is linked to your comment about Europe being actually quite a small export market. And are you seeing a shift in consumer attitudes in those bigger export markets like China and like India, which I think would be very interesting?
Yes, and even for like in consumers in Indonesia, now they are also growing their concern on environmental issues, and that's why IKEA has been welcomed. And I think China has been shifting quite drastically on these issues, and especially for palm oil. India is not so, but China is very strong on building their reputations and try to solve their own problem actually on environment. So I think this is a way to do. This is the green issues can be very important and strategic going to the future because of the consumer factors. But I have to also warn that green issues can be green protection. Actually, many of Indonesians saying that this is not an environmental issue at all. What been anti-dumping measures in Europe for some of our products, CPO products. I mean, all of this big campaign. It is not an environmental issue. This is just a very simple, pure trade issue. Palm oil is just more competitive than the domestic products. So, and I think that's understandable, because after we solve the sustainable issues, there come the health issues. After we solve the health issues, come the human rights issues, and so forth. And where is the end? So I think that all end up in consumers. That's why about a year or so, last year or 2 years ago, we established what we call it as IPOCC, Indonesian Palm Oil Customer Care. It's an effort for us to communicate directly to the consumers about the objective fact of palm oil. It's very surprisingly that, I'm not so surprised actually, that many of European consumers that doesn't even know that palm oil is a tree. They just feel that it's, I don't know, come from something else. When some of the parliament's member, when we take them to the plantations and see how this tree grow and how the community, growing and prosperous with palm oil, then that's just an eye opener for them. So I think this is something that we need to come forward and talk with them and have a discussion to build an understanding. Another example, for example, when I have an opportunity to speak in the French Parliament, debating with all the Parliament members in Paris, and they come with an expert, a doctor, saying that palm oil is not good for your health. And in that slide, I said the doctors, these good doctors say eating too much of palm oil based products is bad for your health. And I'm just asking these doctors, if you eat too much of red meat, too much of wine, too much of salt, everything. So the key is not about palm oil, but the word too much. Right? So that's again something that we need to come to the consumers and discuss it. And by the way, for IKEA, I love to see you look on the palm oil timber. The old palm oil tree, after 3 years, 30 years, it's a very solid timber inside it. And if you, for example, a company like IKEA, would like to contribute, this is one of the major problems of replanting with a new system, which is a more sustainable system. Because the farmers what we should be doing with these big trees, it's like maybe 10 meters high. That's a good timber actually. So it's kind of good business for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Sipping from Cargill. And I actually have 2 questions for you.
Please.
One, I would like to know, can you give an indication of the volume or the number of plantations that have already passed the ISPO certification? Is there other numbers?
It's about 30%, about 7.5 million ton production. But it's still actually, ISPO is a little bit different. I'm sorry, you have another question for me. Okay. If I could explain, ISPO is something like this. When we try to implement the first time of ISPO, we already make assessment of the companies. So this is nothing to do with class as a discriminatory, just to put a condition. There is a group of companies, B group, C group, right? The A group is actually companies who already implement maybe through RSPO, to other standard, they already implement sustainable measures. So it's easier for them to use and put an ISPO in their system. This will be the priority. The B group is a little bit difficult, and the C is still a very it's very early stage on the sustainable process. So even though Pak Expo is still only about 3 years, this A group is already about 30-35% of the total companies and production. We are very optimistic. With that, we can start, instantly, almost instantly, because they are just an administrative work to systematize that to become a certified Expo. This B group is about another 30-35%. So it's also easy. It's not going to take long to go on the ISPO standard. The other one, maybe that's a task. That's a challenge. How to change some of them to go on more sustainable. Many of the farmers are already in all of this group, because this group based on the companies. The farmers related to the companies also put within the group. So I think that is measures that hopefully we could do not so long, as I said, on the optimist side. 5 years is reachable.
The second question.
Yes.
It's actually related to the topic you were discussing earlier on, we've done, or the European consumer is very concerned about first the environmental aspect, but also the health and nutritional aspect of the farm. For that reason, a group of companies have also founded the European Palm Oil Alliance,
Yes.
GOA. And we are trying to balance the debate, especially focused on the health aspect, because we believe that the environmental aspect is being taken care of by RSPO. So as a group of joint importers and refiners of palm oil, we are working together there. And we would love to see a closer collaboration, obviously, with the Indonesian, well, maybe the Indonesian palm oil customer care.
Yes, please. You have the representative of one of the.
I think it would be great, because
Yes.
I think it's very important that we all share the same agenda and send out a consistent
Yes.
message
Yes.
based on the scientific
Of course.
evidence and not on emotion.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Love to, and I will make sure. Harry here is one of the representatives. Actually, there is one or two of the representatives from IPOCC who already come. Will come tomorrow. Maybe if you have the time tomorrow, you'll be there. So probably some of the Indonesians will also participate, and you can build communications. Totally support that.
Yes.
Sorry, one quick, let me add a second question. I think, Minister, you said that Indonesia currently produces about 4.5 million tonnes of RSPO certified oil, about 7 million tonnes of
Yes.
ISPO. How much of that product is actually being sold as sustainably produced palm oil? And my impression is that with RSPO, that only about 60-70% of what's produced is actually sold as a certified product, which I was rather surprised by the gentleman from Shell saying that they're struggling to buy certified product in the market when so much is millions of tonnes is being sold as just palm oil, not sustainably certified palm oil.
Yeah, I think the 4.5 all has been sold.
I'm sure it's all being sold, but I wonder what fraction is being sold as RSPO certified palm oil.
Yes, I think all of them. Look, let me be very honest and very pragmatic. None of Indonesian companies would like to take that process of certification if the consumer doesn't ask them. This is just, I'm very honest on that set, that the consumers is the drivers on this. So when they go to RSPO, even though now it's becoming their needs, because as you know, within the industrial model, once you implement one system, then you will do that, even though the market is not. This is not something that you can, like a tailor-made kind of type. This is something that you implement the whole systems and it stay. But the first time when they implement the RSPO measures, it's because of the consumers. And I think the growing number of that 4.5 of that production mainly will come from the consumers or government regulation, both. So I think 4.5 is exactly quite very near with the total amount that been purchased by companies like Unilever, Nestle, all that companies who asking for a sustainable measures. Actually, if you put that as a total, then it's about 4.5. So that is, I think, a very good sign for me. On how we should pursue the collaboration between law and regulation from the government and the demand from the consumers. If we jointly put that on context, I can assure you that the productions process will implement the system.
All right. With no more questions, probably we can continue this dialogue. With this, I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.